In this video, we're going to go ahead and look at InDesign CC 2020 and go through some of the common problems I see when you're putting together your publications. Let's go ahead and jump into InDesign. So here I've got someone's guide that they've put together. So let's look at a few things. Let's first look at page number 1. You'll notice that their page number is appearing, which we don't want to have happen. So you want to make sure you're putting that none master on. So I'm going to grab that none over in pages and drag it down, and that's going to go ahead and hide anything that's on the master. I want that none master on my back cover as well because I don't want to have that show up as well. So another thing I see is style overrides. So a lot of times you will have created your styles for your different types of titles. Don't always apply those. So how do I know that? I know that because when I go to my paragraph styles, if you hit this little A plus at the top, it's going to go ahead and highlight blue anything that you have overridden. So maybe some places you did a really good job of applying it and other places you did not. So how do you know what you did? Go take that text tool, click in it, and you're going to get that basic paragraph plus. And the plus sign is going to say this is what you did. You decided to make it bigger and a different font. So what you need to do is either go through and make a new style, or you need to go ahead and clear the overrides. So you can create a new style based on what you see there, or you can say, no, I don't want you to override. I want you to go ahead and you can redefine the style. So it's going to, that one will be right all the time. Or you can decide, hey, I need to go through and make this, should be my body style right here. So that's how you're going to go through and make sure that you want to make sure you're using those styles consistently throughout your entire guide, because it makes it so you have a consistent look and feel. You know, your body copy is the same on page 1 as it is on page 10. Also makes it really easy to change things on the fly. So when in doubt, go in, find out what that plus is. On this one, they have underlined it, they have made it a different size, they made it all caps. So really pay attention to how you're going to use those things. If it's something you're going to use over and over again, then go ahead and create a style from it so you can use it consistently throughout your publication. So once again, you're in your paragraph styles, just turn a little plus sign on. You can pretty easily see what you have overwritten. Another thing I'm seeing all the time is spelling errors. So spelling errors, the easiest thing to do is go into your edit, and then come down here to spelling and make sure dynamic spelling is turned on. Dynamic spelling turned on, make sure you are in the normal mode, not in the preview, and you should be able to go through and see, if it's not frozen, your spelling mistakes. They should be underlined with a little red line. Then you can go through and change those. There's no reason any type of spelling mistakes in your publications. It's really easy to make sure that you don't. Let's see. If you do have one, you can click and go ahead and clean those up. I swear it had some. No, I can't find them. All right, now I'm going to do Control-Alt-0 and pages at once. All right, so another thing pretty frequently is problems with putting in too many text boxes. You'll see your problem with too many text boxes. It makes it really hard to organize and keep them really consistent from one place to another. So when in doubt, use your text frame options and divide them into columns. Make sure you're using your text wrapping in order to put these images in. So that's another issue. Another thing you can look at is alignment. So sometimes, especially when we've got a whole bunch of things we're trying to align at once, you can go ahead to that properties panel. And I'm going to go ahead and just select all the elements I want to align. I'm going to come here into my align and make sure that I'm using my align features so I don't have to try and do those all by hand. Now, right now it's doing some really weird stuff. So what is it grabbing? Pull this over to the side. Oh, it's only grabbing those two. That would be why. All right, so let's grab those three. and let's align center. So now it's aligning the center of the boxes. Now it's going to seem like that's not right because this dollar sign actually has a little bit of space underneath. So it's actually throwing that off just a little tiny bit. So what you could do is do a right click and a fitting and fit frame to content, which is going to make it fit that exactly. Now let's go ahead and distribute those middles. And now you're going to get a much closer look. This one's got a few issues in that, obviously this one's cut off. So let's hit our auto fit and let's go ahead and fit frame to content. Oh, so that one is actually cut off. So we can fit this frame to content too. Oh, but that one's got some weird stuff. So depending on how you built your icons, you might end up with some funky things going on. That's why you want to always use those custom shapes and create all your icons at one time. You can also use your distribute and say, okay, now I want you to go ahead and distribute these so that they have equal spacing between them. And it's going to be based on the size of the boxes themselves. So you might not necessarily get what you want, but definitely use those align features whenever you can. All right, what else do we need to look at? We need to look at text frame options. So let's go ahead and do a right click on a text frame, do a right click there and do a text frame option. And it's here where you're going to go ahead and you can change the number of columns. You can also adjust that inset spacing, which makes it push a little bit away from the side of those boxes. So if you've got one that's really, really close, maybe you've decided to fill that box. Here, we'll go ahead and fill it with a color. So if you look at it now, you can see it's right at the edges, which looks really weird. Look like you cheated the margins. So let's go right here to your text frame options and add a little bit of inset spacing. So now when we see it, we can see that it's not quite so close. You can also use those text frame options to do a few other things like balance it in the center. Let's see. Align, you can put it in the center. You can do quite a few different, I don't have anything selected. Now let's select it. Now I can say align center. So now it's going to move that to the center. So you've got quite a few options. Don't try and eyeball it. Let the software do the work for you. All right. You want to make sure your pages are divisible by 4. That way when you do traditional self-publishing printing, you'll end up with no white pages. You want to make sure you watch that gutter down the middle. You don't want to lose anything, so make sure you're giving yourself that thumb space, those margins on all your pages. And the most important thing, one of the things I'm looking at, well, 2 more things to go. Look at photo credits. So let's come here. Photo credits should look like it's not like captions. So you see I've got, where'd my caption go? There we go. So this one's got one sticking out here right in the middle, which is kind of obnoxious, kind of doesn't look that good. Let's switch it to the preview mode and kind of see. Okay, so it looks like it's sticking out there. So what I will usually do is either put it over here in the gutter, and I would just do, instead of courtesy of, I would just do photo, colon, whoever wrote it, whoever took it picture, and the source. Now it's also still kind of big, so what you can do, let's look at properties. I would make probably a photo credit style that is pretty small. So I can go even down to maybe a 6 point, and instead of making it really dark, maybe I will make it more of a gray, maybe more of a brown, so it's not quite as obvious. One of the other things you can do, you can tuck them right inside your photos. That can always work. Depends on your photo. It's usually a little bit cleaner just to put them over here in the gutter. It's up to you as to how you're going to make them, but be consistent. They don't have to be dark black. They can be light gray. All right, now the other thing we need to really look at is image sizes and quality and what I call squished images. So let's go ahead and go back to our normal mode or a regular mode. All right, let's go ahead and go into your links. I want you to go to your panel options down here at the bottom in your hamburger menu. I want you to turn on actual PPI and effective PPI. This is going to let you see at a glance what you have going on as far as your images go. You might need to go to the top and stretch it a little bit so you can see. So here you've got every single image that's been placed in your publication. So the first number should be 300. If it's not, you definitely need to go through and change it. The second number should be just a single number, and it should range between 300 and 600. Because what the second number is telling us is how big is it compared to how big you're using it. So if we look at, say, this one right here, let's look at this earthlings1.jpg. Let's go to our page 6 and kind of take a peek at where we're at. So it says Earthlings right here. So I can see it's 300 dpi, which is where it's supposed to be, but it also says it's 9500 by 9700. So that means I know it's a really big image. Let's do an edit with and go to Photoshop and take a peek at what's going on. So if I look at my InDesign document, I can tell I'm using it at about maybe 1 inch by 1 inch, maybe 2 inches by 2 inches. So I need to kind of think about how I'm using them and why I would need it to be that big, because it's going to impact your upload times, your transferring, your packaging, just the overall speed of everything that's going on. So let's go ahead and take a look at Welcome Earthlings. One of the first things I would always do is to image. I would do an auto tone, just kind of clean it up a little bit, auto contrast. You can do auto color, but sometimes auto color, I'm not always happy with how it ends up. Okay, now let's do an image size. And I can tell that this image is 45 inches wide by 34 inches tall. I'm using it as like a 2 by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and take that width down to like 2 inches and the width down to 2 inches. And I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to go ahead and save it, Control S. And now when I go into my InDesign, I can see now where I had 9,000, I now have 5,000 or 500 by 500, which is much closer. But I can also tell I'm still squishing that image a little bit. So let's go ahead and take a look at that image. Let's come down here to your auto fit. And what I would want to do is come here and fit content proportionally, which is going to make it so you don't have one number by another number. Whenever you have one number by another number, it means that you have squished it in some way or another. So let's go ahead and take a look at, let's look at this one on page 4. So we know it's this image right here. So what happens if we play? We can do fill frame proportional. Let's do the auto. And let's do fill proportionally. And it's going to get rid of that. Or we can do some of the other fitting options. You can fit content proportionally. So we can kind of see that your box is actually bigger. So it depends on whether or not you want to cut off some of those edges or not. But you want to make sure that all these numbers do not have a something by something else. You also need to go into all of these. Whoa, look at these. So here I've got an icon that's 11,000 by 12,000. So I know that that image is huge compared to where I'm using it. So let's go ahead and click on page 9. So it's this icon right here. So let's go ahead and do a right click, edit with, Photoshop. Let's look at our image and our image size. And it's 13 inches. I'm using it as barely half an inch. So let's say 1 inch. Let's go ahead and save it. Now let's go ahead and go back in. And we should have a much smaller issue. Because these are what's called parent and child images, it's actually going to shrink all of them because the original has. But these individual uses are still squished in one way or another. So you definitely want to go through, hit your auto fit, and make those fit the right way so that you're not messing with their proportion. So you do need to do that for every single image that you have in your publication. So like here, they're all 8,000. So definitely they're all way too big. Maybe there's cases where you've got your logo, which is sometimes really large and sometimes really small. I would make one that's logo big, like logo small. It's going to make your life a lot easier, especially if you're having problems overall with your publication. So those are the general things I look for as I'm going through your publications. I'm basically starting on page 1. I pull out the rubric and say, okay, do you have what you need? Do you have 3 teasers? Do you have your masthead? Does the date publication match the date in your footer? Making sure that you have a footer. Making sure that the page numbers work out okay. So it's really just a matter of polishing those little tiny things at the end, which is going to make your publication that much better. And I think make you much happier with it altogether. If you have any questions, let me know.